You're listening to the Freio
Music Podcast.
To the Freio Music
Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Freio Music Podcast. In this episode, I interview Neil Sullivan. Neil is a founding member of the band Intuit and also collaborates with the Jyemo Club, which is a 10-piece Latin explosion band. He's played at Red Rocks and many main stages at different festivals. He's recently started a brand new solo project, which you will hear a sneak preview of. So stay tuned and enjoy.
I feel it like a summer rain when it's coming back around again. And I hear it when the thunder rolls, the rumble of the heavens. And I've been wasting time, shit, I know that I'll do better. It took some time to realize, though, but I'm here, I've arrived. Who I am, what I am, what I need. Could it be, could it be, could it be? Who I am, what I am, what I need. Could it be, could it be, could it be?
My name is Neil Sullivan, and I'm making music currently with myself as a solo project, Neil Sullivan. I am also a founder of the band Intuit from Boulder, Colorado, which is currently on hiatus, and I also play in the band Jyemo Club, Denver-based Latin explosion.
Let's go back to early history or childhood or whenever it strikes you, but what was your first musical memory?
First musical memory. Well, I would say what comes to mind, my first musical memory in terms of feeling the itch to learn an instrument was I had a neighbor, Jared Rose, who was just, as a young kid, just already virtuoso, incredible. And I just, remember sitting in the sun in the backyard and watching him play and just being like totally transfixed.
And he was playing the guitar?
Playing guitar, yep. And so, that was definitely a moment that I was like, I want to learn how to do that.
And was he a similar age to you at that time?
Yeah, he's a couple years older.
Okay. How old were you?
Let's see. Must have been 7th grade or something like that. 6th grade. I started playing when I was in 7th grade, so probably about 6th grade. 11 years old, maybe.
Nice. And when was so you got the itch. Did you pick up the guitar then?
Kind of procrastinator, I played a little here and there. There was a guitar laying around, but didn't really get serious till, maybe that next year. It took me a year or so to get into it, and then played all through high school and whatnot.
Nice. And when you picked it up, were you playing acoustic or electric?
Yeah, I started with an acoustic just because it was what I had access to.
Yeah.
And then shortly thereafter got myself a guitar, a Parker guitar, which is what Jared played. So I was truly being a poser.
Well, you gotta learn from those who inspire you.
Yeah,
so that's good.
Yeah.
So when was the first time that you performed music?
Well, that was pretty cool. Is going to CCHS in Concord, Massachusetts, where I grew up. There was a really well produced Battle of the Bands, and about 20 bands would try out, and they'd let 8 bands compete, and that would happen once a year. And they hired the local radio station to set up 2 stages and proper sound system. So by the time I was like 14, there was a venue, so to speak, and so we would kind of rehearse all year for that 20-minute set and for that audition. And so that was like my intro to gigging, which I actually attribute that to like really having the momentum to pursue it, because as a young kid, actually having an opportunity to get in front of 500 people, pretty cool.
Yeah, so sold out audience at your first show.
Yeah. Most years it was just a built-in audience,
Yeah.
because it was just the thing.
That's awesome. And how did it go? Like, were you super nervous or confident on stage, or how did it go?
I've always been pretty comfortable on stage. No band I ever played in did that well in the ratings, and I think I attribute some of that to the nature of being in high school. It's a bit of a popularity contest.
Yeah.
Or maybe we just weren't that good, You
weren't experts from the first show. Did that show give you some momentum, like mentally, and change your mentality, thinking that this is a career I could pursue?
I think I was more just obsessed and was not thinking long term, though I've always related to music in a very free but serious way, that it's always felt like the most clear thing that I've meant to do and that really enriches my life. So I was, already pouring my soul into it and playing constantly to the point of driving my family nuts and all that. But, I don't think that, I think even to this day, I still am looking for those affirmations to keep going. It's a dedication to be an artist and a musician. And there's always fear to be conquered. But I think that if you can just do it for the love of it and really believe in it, then that's actually going to sustain you longer than feeling affirmed by some accomplishment,
Yeah. So you said something interesting, free but serious.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
To me, by that, I just mean that I have to be free in my music. I was actually just speaking with my girlfriend about this, is I don't ever want to create out of fear. I don't want to I seek to have a career in music performing, and I have a realistic understanding of what that means in terms of all the hard work it takes to get there and the lack of guarantees. But it has to be about the music first. So being free in that when I go to make music, I'm doing it for my own human growth and for connecting to other people through expression and through finding beauty in life that can make it easier to be human and live and deal with the challenges of living in this world. So in that way, that's kind of the freedom. And then the seriousness is that I don't want to be in the bedroom forever making this music. I would like to get serious about it and do what's necessary to create the dream, to live the dream that I've imagined.
Were there any other artists or teachers along the way that have really inspired you or changed your sound?
Definitely. And what comes to mind really is that just seeing live music has always, kind of blown me away. And one of my favorite ways growing up to see a new band was, I'd hear the buzz, or for whatever reason, I'd know that this show is happening and that people I know are going, and I would just go blind. I wouldn't want to know anything about the band. And, I've gone through all my musical phases, and I remember going into Boston and seeing some of the jam bands like Humphreys McGee for the first time in these tiny little clubs before they blew up, and, going there with no expectation, and then having, the chemistry, onstage chemistry and musical virtuosity kind of blow me away. And so, I think, I've it's been a long time since I've been a jam band guy, but at the same time, every show I see, I'm touched by the artist, unless it's a garbage show.
Yeah. That's great. And did you study music in school?
Yeah, so I'm self-taught up until college, and then I went to Naropa University in Boulder, Colorado, and did my music degree there.
And is it a general music degree, or did you study particular type of guitar?
Naropa has an interesting program. It was a very small program. So and Naropa by nature is very student directed in terms of I had a lot of freedom in my path. So I studied recording arts, and I studied some different world music, took some West African percussion, took some samba classes, took, just learned a lot. It was pretty broad. Yeah.
Great. And when did you start singing?
I think probably I've always sang, but I didn't truly start singing until Chloe, my partner in Intuit, kind of forced it out of me. Like, she knew I was capable. And so, yeah, that was pretty much, I guess I was singing in high school, but just here and there and with a lot of holding back. And then Intuit really gave me the voice.
I see the sun rising on your face in memories I can't erase. And as the moon is to the sea, you are the one that's moving me. And if I could change both time and space, I'd let them flow at a natural pace. 'Cause now I know to trust the stars and to feel the love inside my heart. The wind pushing back at me, I hear the song moving through the trees. I'm letting go, will I blow away? But time will tell if I will stay. And I promised you would live and learn. I'd do the work, and in return you promised me would live and grow into something beautiful.
And I'm still learning how to sing. I'm totally untrained and yeah. So maybe 2012 or something, 2011.
Okay, more recent. So you played on some of most prestigious stages. You played at Red Rocks recently. You played at the main stage at Arise and many other. What have you learned from your evolution as a musician?
Yeah. Man, I'm always learning so much, but I think what's been present the whole time is that being really honest with an audience and with yourself when you're creating music, to me, that's how I've reached people in a way that's meant something to them. So, I can be kind of nutso on stage. I kind of get possessed by the music, but it's, it's an authentic experience that I can't help but be expressive on stage. And I think that, that kind of honesty is received in a performance. I'm jumping off of things sometimes and I'm falling onto the ground and there's video evidence of these things, but it's never a show. It's actually just, it's a show, but it's me and the music doing our thing. It's not actually for the viewers' enjoyment. It's just so yeah. I think that that's what I've learned, is to be myself and to be willing to be seen and to be brave and embodied.
It's great. So bring me to a moment that was a low point in music. Was there any stage or any time where you really had a rough go of it? And how you overcame it?
Let's see. That question's hard for me because there's always a challenging component to being a musician, but and maybe I could speak to it in that broad sense. But I find deep joy in the struggle, and actually in musicians who have really touched me with their music, there's a component of, committing to your craft and your art, regardless of the pain it might cause you. And so yeah, I think there's low points always along the way. But if you get used to the ebbs and flows of creative spirit, of feeling so crushed and hopeless, and then having that pendulum back to being on a big stage with a new song that means something to you and seeing people receive that, and just it's to me, that's what makes music so enriching, is the journey.
And some of the highlights along your path. I mean, is it expressing yourself through a new song, or is there any particular moments that stand out as like, oh man, I want to, dream about that again? And
Well, Red Rocks was cool. I'd like to play there
so.
again, but that's the obvious answer. Yeah, I think, my whole path as all the choices I've made and all the bands I've played in, and, now having toured around the country a bit and playing all these festivals, it's really, the high point is the culmination of all that. It's where I'm at 28 years old as a human being with my life. Like, my outlook on life is shaped by the choices I've made. And, if you do something enough and you commit to it, it's going to define your life. And because I, threw caution to the wind, so to speak, and didn't pursue some safe career path and like kind of consistently am punching fear in the face to make my art, it's life just continues to grow into something that I want it to be. So that is kind of the high point.
That's great. And was there any particular decisions or turning points in your life that, looking back on it, is like, oh, that was a defining moment or shift?
Yeah. So I graduated from high school and was unsure what the next step was. And, as I'm just finishing talking about this, like throwing caution to the wind, initially at 18, 19, whatever, I was like, okay, I should probably go to school for biology, and I should do this, and, music, just sit on the side for a second. So I went to a university and I did a year, and, I went to a town that happened to have no music scene, no venue, and it was like truly the contrast of where I should be. And I have a memory of, coming to close to the end of the year and just kind of being fed up. And I was in one of those high-rise student dorms, and I went into the stairwell, which was, a 12-story stairwell with an acoustic guitar, and the reverberations were wild. And I just remember like ripping into my guitar and this like thing coming from it, and I remember being like, I'm getting the hell out of here. Like, I'm like, that stairwell moment was like, something about that guitar echoing back to me, and the size of what I was hearing and how like meaningful what I was doing in that moment was. I was like, I'm insane for being all the way up here in upstate New York. Like, the mountains are beautiful, but there's music to be made. And then, that's what, I basically looked up some things about Colorado and headed out here. So it was pretty defining.
Well, I feel honored that when you decided to pursue music, you chose our state.
Yeah. That was another weird, everybody who went to Naropa has a weird story of how they got there, and that's for another day. But yep. Thanks, nice. Naropa.
Well, that sounds like I can just imagine a 12-story stairwell that's like concrete, and
yep.
Man, well, that's cool that in a way it's like the guitar was calling you, or the reverberation, the sound resonated.
Yep.
So moving on to, your musical career, once you decided to pursue it, you've worked with Intuit for several years, and you were creating alongside other very talented musicians. So how was it in the creative process that you were able to kind of mesh and blend or co-create songs with other artists?
Well, Intuit gave me a cool opportunity for that, because Chloe Watkins and I started the band and wrote all the songs, some together and some separately, and we started from a very open place of just like any song that came out was part of the repertoire. And so before too long, we had created a sound that was pretty free for us, like genre-wise. It was reggae, it was folk, it was funky, it was rockin' and bluesy, and so yeah. And we had so many different drummers over the years, different bass players. We had all this musical influence, and we always invited everybody in on that level of like anything goes. And so, yeah, I guess collaborating with other artists in such an open container allowed a lot of exploration for me.
Sinking in, I find what it is I got to be moving through. You tell me it's on, 'cause I can't wait another lifetime. Know nothing about faking it, though sometimes I'm making it up. Even when I am, it comes from a place of trying to be myself. And I feel into the space, still I can't get out of my own way. And even if I could, I'm not really sure there's anywhere to be growing yet. Then again, I feel the light, but this time in the middle of the night. And I wake from my bed, the words in my head are finding their way to the page. And I feel it's time I step it up, 'cause now I've had more than enough. And I'm afraid, yes I am, but there's no other way.
And now in taking a step back from that group thing and being more in the studio and doing my own thing, it's kind of, you know, it's nice to make all the choices and to actually be aware too of how many choices are being made musically at all times. And so it's like this cool contrast.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. And being able to play in such a free setting, and you mentioned that Chloe kind of encouraged and enticed you to pursue your vocals.
Yep.
And bring those
Chloe.
out. Yeah. And now that you're, you know, working solo and you are choosing every decision, you know, I would imagine that there's new challenges now because you are
For sure.
the captain. And,
Yeah.
you know, so do you struggle with perfectionism? And if so, what are your strategies for combating it or working with it? Because you could keep re-recording everything a million times.
Yeah. Well, I would say that I, you know, have been called that perfectionist, and I also I take a lot of time in crafting sound. So I think the way I combat that is, you know, knowing that the art has to be made, the music has to be made, and I because I'm on that side of the spectrum, I can just push myself to finish I can just motivate myself, knowing that like my threshold of what's acceptable is well into a realm of, you know, I'm not making things hastily, and so I have to remind myself of that, and to keep it moving, you know, and I'm even, you know, I'm just one of these people who has like this bank of musical ideas, some of which sit around for years, and in a very intentional way that it's like I become called to finish something. I'm not sure that I've really been that effective of learning how to deal with the perfectionism, but I'm hoping to just create, just put it out, you know. Yeah, and just see where that would take me.
And when you say that you have a bank of musical ideas, what does that mean to you? Are those lyrics that you've written? Are those guitar riffs? Are those recordings that are kind of collecting dust in hard drive?
Probably a combination, but typically, you know, because the guitar is like kind of how I channel musical ideas, it's where my muscle memory is the most instant, so that I can kind of turn the brain off and just have things come out. So, a lot of songs, or pretty much everything I've written, has stemmed from just a single musical idea. Not always a guitar riff, but that's pretty typical. Occasionally it's a lyric, but lyrically I'm kind of in the boat of like, sometimes I'm not sure what needs to be said, and so like lyrics again are something that take me a lot of time, just because not I'm not here to blather.
So your songs then are typically created through the guitar, and then lyrics are added secondarily. Is that?
Yeah, and now that I'm spending more time creating with electronic sounds and in a studio setting, other instruments, the keyboard. I'm by no means a keyboard player, but I can fake it on recordings.
Yeah, well, MIDI is nice. You can grab those notes and drag them around.
Hopefully we don't need to fake it that hard, but at least do it 10 times till I get it right.
To get it right.
But eventually I'll have the proper live band so that each instrument is manned or womaned by someone who really knows what they're doing.
Nice. And how are you creating your drum tracks or percussion?
Well, so I've only released the single.
Yeah.
So I guess I can speak to that. That's some 808s and some like nice samples. So it's pretty much electronic drums.
Great. Yeah. So moving on to your most recent work, which is a single called 27, and you wrote it when you were 27, but you're now 28.
Yes.
And it
perfectionism at its finest.
Well, it's out there. It's out there. You push the publish button, so that's says something. So where and how did you record it?
So I worked on it a lot from home, and then a big relationship that's been shaping my whole musical path here is one with Chris Wright at Violet Recording in Boulder. He's a master of his craft and has really been working with me and helping me shape my sound, showing me what a proper track sounds like with the right gear. And so I work from home, and then I bring it in there, and anything that can remains, and we retrack vocals and some live guitars and the things that we really want to make sparkle with all his amazing gear. So kind of doing the at-home studio and in the pro studio.
Nice. And you're spending a majority of your time at home working on it.
Thus far, yep.
It. And then you go into the studio and...
Yeah, for this last one, we managed to do it in a day. And it was pretty wild to just put in like a 12-hour day and come out the other end with a song. And Chris works in analog world over there, and he was kind enough to, with my perfectionism again, I was listening to it after we had taken it off the board. So in analog world, once it's off the board, the mix is gone. You got to start from the ground up. And I heard these micro details, and Chris was kind enough to pretty much start from scratch with the mix and dial it all back in for these micro details. So thank you, Chris, if you're listening. Really appreciate that. And the more I go in the studio, the more I can avoid those kind of things. But it definitely takes hours in the studio to be a good studio musician.
Yeah. And what makes you choose to do analog? Is that Chris, and that's all he works with, or is that?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to Violet Recording's website, you can learn about the signal path that he's got going on and all the gear, and it kind of speaks for itself. He's got tape machines and all this stuff, but I would love to be working with Chris regardless of the analog gear, but and I'm not such a techie guy, but what I hear in there from all like the solid state Logic board and these nice microphones and the tape machines, it just there's a richness occurring that I have not heard in any other studio. So pretty stoked on it.
I feel it like a summer rain when it's running down my back again, and I really think I always knew that I'd feel a whole lot better. And I've been wasting time, shit, I'm almost 27. It took some time to realize though, but I'm here, I've arrived. Who I am, what I need. Could it be, could it be, could it be? Who I am, what I need. Could it be, could it be, could it be?
did 2 singles with Chris Wright at Violet Recording. Those are the most recent recordings. And we did a Chloe song and a Neil song. And I actually have never released this final. There's an Intuit song that no one's ever heard. So we'll get back to you about that.
Is it going to get out there? Or?
It's not going to go in the garbage, that's for sure. But yeah, again, I'm listening back, and there might be a thing or two I might tweak about it. But I would like to release that at some point.
Great. And so you're also working with, I'm hoping I'm saying this right, Jyemo Club?
Yes, you got it.
And that is, I had to look it up, but a dectet, 10-piece band. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess I never heard that. But yep.
Yeah.
It's a 10-piece. That's for sure.
10-piece. So you've worked with a lot of musicians. What makes a great artist?
Wow. I think that's a total opinion question. Because, yeah, it's hard to judge people for their creations, but what makes a good artist? I guess the way I'd want to rephrase that question is what makes a great artist to me? Mm-hmm. And to me, a great artist makes incredible music that stands alone in terms of a recording, there's an audio experience that you can have that is well produced, a live show that is captivating, and then what really gets me is I want music to both satisfy my love for music itself and for the human spirit behind the music. Like, I like to feel connected to the artist as a human being, in combination with having musicality and instrumentation that is impressive and well delivered. I just kind of like the whole package, you know? So to me, a great artist just has it all, like, down to the last little detail. And there's plenty of great artists who are, you know, they could be greater if they tuned up 1 or 2 things, but, you know, we can't all have it all. Yeah. But some artists are getting close.
So speaking of art, your recent work, 27, has a music video, which is unlike any other music video that I've seen.
Nice.
And I think you mentioned that you created it with a Super 8 film camera.
Yep.
So first of all, that is analog.
Yes, it is.
And so how did you do it, or what inspired you to approach it in that way?
Well, so my girlfriend's name is Edie Angela Fuertes, and she is a visual artist first and a kind of a musician second. She learns incredibly quickly. And I have a background in alternative process photography. So in our coming together, you know, our relationship has a very large foundation in being creative together. So she was initially the one who brought the idea to do it with Super 8. And we really like using an analog film camera and analog, you know, like 35 millimeter cameras or medium format film cameras to create content, because not having a viewfinder and not being able to micro analyze everything you're creating as you're creating it, it kind of brings back that freedom I was talking about, where you just have to be present. So like, I liked shooting the Super 8 because, you know, it's a limiting format that allows you to just be very present and come up with something aesthetically beautiful without, you know, staring at hours of digital footage and being so ego attached to like what it is, and like being able to judge how you look and all this. So we kind of just, and we also felt like it would match the song, because it has this like reminiscent, almost retro-y sound to it. So yeah, so we shot it with a Super 8 video film camera, and then we had it processed by Pro 8 millimeter in California. And when we got the actual film back, we painted the film and had it redigitized. So there's kind of this psychedelic quality. And again, it's really, for us, it was about having fun and trying to create something that enhanced the music, which we were happy with what we came out with.
So tell me about that, because I'm totally ignorant of film and painting of film.
Yeah.
So I imagine there's like a long tape.
Yes.
And you literally
it was
took
100 feet long.
Watercolor to it?
We took ink of different varieties of ink. And because you're painting on a negative, a film negative that then is digitized, like scanned and made into a positive, whatever colors you're using will also flip. So you'll see we stuck to a few colors to keep it reasonable. And yeah, just literally applied paint to this film in all these bizarre ways. And then we have a friend in Littleton, Colorado, who has a custom scanner that he uses to scan these experimental films. Like, he deals with artists who do that kind of thing often. And so all of the paint shows up on top of the film images. And yeah, it's kind of, something worth seeing versus talking about. It's kind of hard to describe.
I agree with that. You got to look. You
Yeah.
got to look it up. And that is 27, but it's also got the slivers on the top and bottom,
Yes.
which I find
So
interesting.
we had it overscanned. When you shoot with Super 8, when you look through the viewfinder, you're looking at one thing, and then when it comes out, there's a sprocket hole punched out of the image, and there's on the top and bottom you can see the next frame. That's what that is. Because on the film itself there's about 24 little images for 1 second. That's how the film works. And so we could have honed in and removed all that, but we would have been losing some of the frame that we shot, and overall we just liked how it looked. And
Yeah, and I noticed, my own experience of watching the film, I instantly noticed it because it's unlike anything else that I've seen. And then, a few seconds in, it was gone. Like, I was in the images, and I was not analyzing the layout of it.
well, that's great.
So but it instantly stood out. So listeners out there, check it out.
And actually, I'll mention that Pro 8mm out of California, they're one of the only places in the country that develop Super 8 film. And so they reached out to us after we made the music video, and they're going to be featuring it on their blog. So maybe there'll be a link out there somewhere, and you can check them out as well and see some of the work that they've done. They just did some stuff for Beyonce, and they've done some pretty amazing things. So
Well, that's awesome. All right, so this next question is broad, but it is what it is. What is music?
Well, I think music, I'd like to define it as like sound that has a meaning to you. And I'm actually going to be teaching this summer at a CU summer program, and that's actually one of the first things that I'd like to ask the class is to draw a line with sound at one end and music at the other, and try to define it, because I feel like it's people like John Cage have really challenged what music is, what sound is, and and I remember at Naropa there was an exercise that I did early on in like musicianship one where we were listening to just the soundscape of place, and then the moment that you put like a beginning and an ending on that exercise, it almost becomes a composition when you're so I don't know, that's a very heady, we could get really heady right now.
You go as far as you want.
But yeah, sound that makes you feel something, or sound with meaning, or
That's
maybe
great.
just sound. Maybe it's just sound. I don't know.
And why create music?
Well, for me, it connects me with other people. It gives me purpose. It gives me an outlet for what I'm experiencing that can get me outside of myself. So it can be very healing just to make it for yourself. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, there's a million reasons. Those are some of my favorite.
Nice. And what advice, would you potentially give that class that you're going to be teaching, or another younger musician trying to get his or her foot in the door, get started, what have you learned along the way that maybe you wish you knew earlier on?
Fuck fear. Yeah, I think that procrastination and being distracted is the death of creativity. Being afraid is the death of creativity. I would just say, like, yeah, if music or art means something to you, just get out of your own way and do it,
Yeah. Well, what's coming up in the works? What's the future hold for you?
Well, I'm hoping to get an album released to support this single by the end of the year. That's a goal. I haven't set much of a calendar to make that happen and whatnot, so we'll see if I can hold true to that. But yeah, and I'd like to as soon as that's happening, I'm gonna be building a band to make the live show happen, and so yeah, I'm excited for all that and excited to keep playing with the Jyemo Club. We've got some gigs coming up that you can find by going to JymoClub.com.
Spell that one out. JYEMOCLUB.com. Yeah, we'll be playing the Carbondale Mountain Fair, which is a great gig. Intuit will actually be taking a brief wakefulness from hiatus, and playing in Boulder, I believe in September. Not sure where you can find that information, but stay tuned. Probably the Intuit Facebook would be a good place to hear about that. Yeah. Great.
I think that pretty much covers what's coming up.
Great. And what links can our listeners find you, and where can they reach out, or what platforms are you active on?
Well, I'll be sure to give you those in writing as well. But as a solo artist, I'm on all platforms, everything from Spotify, Apple Music, SoundCloud, YouTube, you name it. Let's see.
And your website?
Yep, my website is neilsullivanmusic.com. You can listen to the single there. You can watch the music video and see what's going on. And there'll be some merch creation happening in the next year or so. But again, the music and the band are more important at this point. But I've got some ideas and whatnot. So, yeah, I think if you go to the website, you can pretty much link to everywhere else. So
Great. Well, Neil, thank you so much for spending your time with me this morning and sharing your music with the world, myself, and all your wisdom that you shared. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate what you do for all of us.
On my way, never mind, we can do some other day. Holding on, I said that I wouldn't, but I guess I was wrong. Something inside has moved from my heart to take over my mind, and I'm not so sure. Still, I fall on my own. I'm feeling myself sitting still as a stone, taking time to see what is real.
You've been listening to the Freio Music Podcast with Michael Morahan. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single episode. And don't forget to share this podcast everywhere. Thanks for listening, and until next time, stay tuned.
Freio Music, Freio Music, Freio Music, Freio Music. You are listening to Freio Music.